Hello and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Factory. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz, and I'm thrilled to have Mr. Rick Cutler in the factory today. Welcome aboard, Rick.
Thanks, man.
How you doing? You are a speculative science fiction writer specializing in science fiction westerns. This is gonna be fun. And you've got your debut novel, Colt Ostergaard, A Man with a Gun. And I checked it out. I loved it. It's got illustrations in it, old school. And you're rocking with Raconteur Press. Welcome aboard, buddy.
Thanks, man. Great to be here.
Awesome sauce. Western science fiction. Now, I grew up with Star Trek back in the day, the original series, Star Trek TOS. I'm kind of a snob, you know, everything that came after, Next Generation, Discover, Starfleet Academy, you know, all that. And I loved it. I loved it. The cheap sets, Kirk and Spock and McCoy. And one of the most memorable episodes is when they reenact the gunfight at the OK Corral. I think the story is something about they're aliens who put them in a simulation to kind of punish them. And they're the Hatfields and McCoys. And you got Kirk and Spock in cowboy hats and 6-shooters. And it's kind of a Matrix-y moment where they like realize they're just in a simulation and then that gets their ass out of a sling. I bring that up because science fiction and Westerns boldly go where no man has gone before. And Westerns, the wide open plains, that sense of adventure, have been interwoven really from the beginning. And we're even seeing it with The Mandalorian. That's like a Western, The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. And then you've got Firefly. And you've got all these science fiction spin-offs and all that great content in film, on TV, and in books. And I personally love it. And it seems like you've become a maestro of it. So I just wanted to kind of set it up that way, that this is an exciting subgenre within speculative fiction.
And I'm very lucky to have submitted something that Raconteur Press liked, and haven't stopped since.
Very, very cool. How'd you get into it? I mean, I just, spewed my love of science fiction westerns and how it got me excited early on. How did you fall into that? Because your prose is really perfect for it. It's very natural, a little bit pulpy. You got some great characters. You got a romance in your book. And like I said, you got great illustrations. Tell us a little bit about how this book came to be.
Holy cow, I want to go read this thing. This sounds great.
Yeah, I'm pumping it up, and I'm not even getting residuals, folks.
Well, the check's in the mail, you know. Well, how did I get there? Well, I've always written. I mean, I collected hobbies all through my life. You know, I took photographs. I, dropped it. I picked up ukulele, then harmonica, then guitar, and I was a roadie, and I was also part of Hot Shot Scott and the Backseat Boogie Boys, which was a bar band up in Lake Orion, Michigan. But writing is the only thing that stuck. And so before all this, I wrote a very bad novel, and then I wrote a mediocre one, and then I wrote one that's kind of, it's okay, I need some work. I think I can make this one work. But what happened is that I saw Brendan Hankins, who lives up in Alaska, posted something online about, hey, there's this new publisher that has an open call for something called Space Cowboys. I thought, oh, open call, that's great. And I thought, I don't have any Westerns. And then I stopped and I thought, oh, wait a minute. The current novel that I just finished, there's a character who doesn't like authority because her grandfather was incarcerated in a work camp and they broke his legs, and that's why he limps. I can take that. Well, no, not that character. Let's take his brother and go back like 200 years. Oh, okay, that works for me. So just out of a stray phrase or a character touchstone, I thought, well, I can write a cowboy movie or cowboy story. And I went through, I looked at some of the tropes, I looked at some of the other things involved in cowboys, and I wanted to specifically make it something science fiction because I have always loved reading science fiction. I started with Space Cat, which is probably before your time. Space Cat has kittens, Space Cat visits Venus. I read all the books when I was a kid. But that's how I got to the Space Cowboy. And, it's funny. I about fell out of my chair when they sent me a contract and said, we'd like it. I said, oh, okay, super.
Very exciting for, an indie author, someone with a debut novel, and then you get signed. It's like, Van Halen at Grizzari's or something. It's a rainy Tuesday night. Next thing you know, you're after years of struggle, you're signed. So that's thrilling for you.
It was very much so. And I was being so bold with Raconteur Press. I said, hey, I hear you're going to do another volume because you had so many good stories. Can I send you another one? And they said, well, okay, sure. We don't know what we're doing yet, but sure, send it. And they liked that one. I will say this. The moment I got that second contract, 5 more stories popped into my head. And I wrote them down as fast as I could on 3x5 cards. And that was the beginning of all of Colt and, the continuing stories chronologically coming forward for me. And like the second book or second story that I wrote, Bad Blood on the High Plains, I needed a young female. So I grabbed a name out of the air. And then like 2 stories later, I needed another female. I thought, well, what if I grew her up some, made her like, mature now and older and make them run into each other. And it just kind of tumbled on from there. One thing led to another.
So it sounds like you had these bits and pieces, and then you had some shorter works, and this first book, Colt Ostergaard, Man with a Gun, is aggregating some of your other stuff, massaging it into a longer story. Is that right? How it came to be?
Absolutely right. Yes.
Okay.
And there's a professor who's passed on now from K-State, or KU actually, James Gunn, not the one from Hollywood, but a professor there. And he said, sell it twice. And I dug into that a little bit. And what he was saying is that, you've got an idea, write a short story and sell it. And once you sell that, maybe make it a novel, maybe make it a series of books or series of stories and put them together in a book, which I took that advice. 6 of my short stories were published, and all 6 of the Space Cowboy anthologies from Raconteur Press. What I did is I took those 6, I said, I don't want to give people just a rehash of stuff they've already purchased or read. So what I did is I wrote 7 more stories in that arc, connected each story with a scene between each story. And things that you'll see in the very beginning will pan out later and say, oh, that's where that came from, or that's where that came from. Oh, that's where her scar came from. Okay, I get it now.
I love it. It's a mixture of having that spark, wanting to do it, seeing an opportunity in the space cowboy genre, having a bunch of shorter things that you then realize could make a great debut novel, and then connecting the dots between the stories to make it exciting. And you're really responding flexibly to opportunity. So it's a nice mix between your own creative energy and drive and creating opportunity for yourself through your flexibility, creativity, and business sense. So that's a terrific case study for writers who wanna bust in. How did you first create the relationship with Raconteur? Because I think that knocking on the door is what's so challenging to a lot of writers.
Sometimes you just got to be bold and say, you know what? I hear the stories of people who have 200 rejections before they sell their first novel or first book or story. It's going to happen. I got super, super lucky. Right time, right place, right story, right people, right publisher. And I rode that as hard as I could till it was, they finally finished their final, anthology of Space Cowboys. Follow the money.
Did you send them an email from their contact on the Raconteur website? Did you meet somebody at a conference? Did they reach out to you after reading one of your short stories? What was that touch point? And again, because I'm coming at it, I talk to a lot of writers, especially a lot of speculative, and it's exactly like you say, which is one extreme to another, which is I'm ready to jump out a window because I can't get anybody to get my attention. And other folks are like, well, after 20 or 30 tries, I finally busted in. But it sounds like you started rocking it pretty quick.
Well, it was cold. I mean, I sent a cold submission. Here's my story. I hope you like it. They said they don't want a whole flowery novel in your submission letter. Just, get it out there and get it to us. I said, okay.
Yeah.
Sent it to them, and like I said, I couldn't believe it when they said yes.
All right, you were the right guy at the right time with the right idea.
That's exactly right.
That's very, very cool. And what you're saying, I had J.F. Holmes from Canon Publications, and I know Raconteur and Canon, they fist pump. So it's not like a zero-sum game for me to bring them up. They know each other. And he said exactly the same thing you just said. Don't blind me with bullshit. Don't tell me you're going to do what you're going to do. Send me your plot. Send me a couple chapters. I either like it or I don't. And if I like it, let's rock and roll.
Yeah, there's the old joke about the salesman on his honeymoon, sat on the edge of the bed all night and told her how great it was going to be, but didn't do anything.
Exactly. I love that. I love, hey, baby, I'm all that. And she's kind of like...
I would say put your money where your mouth is, but...
Author-publisher relationships are like that too. I mean, are you hiding behind your genius, or you're just shy? You need a little bit of cojones, right, to just go for it.
You do.
How did you get from your early stories though to Colt? Because I think your prose is really fun, and it's a nice balance between pulp and substance. Like, you got real characters, and I could feel the romance. And then the second part of that question is integrating the illustrations are awesome in the book. And this is not common. You got a terrific illustrator. The characters really come to life, and Colt's girlfriend, I have to say, is quite hot.
You can throw a picture up if you like.
Yeah. On the video, folks, if you're on audio, go over to YouTube. How'd you get the illustrator involved? Tell us about your illustrator. Let's give kudos. And what was that working relationship like?
Well, I'm very, very fortunate. Cedar liked the book. She liked the stories. And she actually said that she was delighted to get involved and do them. I sent her every media piece that I have done, and we can get back to that later. But I sent her all the pictures I had of my ideas and my concepts of what they looked like and things like that. And she took it and ran. When I first got the PDF showing me what it was going to look like and the layout, I was just howling because for joy. I came upstairs. My office is in the basement. I came upstairs. My wife said, "What was all that noise?" I said, "You got to see these pictures. These are so awesome." And I was just lucky that she enjoyed it. She's talented, and they just fit right in with all the stories. So I wish there was some magic thing I could say, but hey, it's all Cedar. She's awesome.
What's her full name? Cedar
Anderson.
She is terrific, and it just fits the motif and style of the book perfectly. It's really, really, really good. And then you have that frontispiece too, with your name, the name of the book, and then it's so Western and so stylish that it's just really cool. And again, relatively rare. You don't get pulpy space Western sagas with this kind of treatment. It's really cool. It's beautiful. And the cover is fun too. Did she do the cover?
She did the cover too. I had the same reaction when I first saw the picture of it. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And
even the title, Colt Ostergaard, a man with a gun. It's like zero bullshit, and you're just hitting that target audience. And then what's the sign that it's sci-fi? Because this could just be a pulp western. Well, he's got some laser bazooka. that he's all in chat. He's in chaps and a cowboy hat, and he got the saloon in the background. But he's got this, BFG from the year 3000. It's great.
Yeah, and the more you look at it, if you look in the background, you'll see futuristic buildings, and the left behind them is looks like an air car. You just see barely off the ground. So it's so subtle. And she put all those little touches in there, and it's like you look for them, you'll see them, which is fun.
Yeah. So, and I think you nail that motif really well between it's anachronistic and just kind of weird, this old school Western, almost 19th century California kind of feel, right? We're literally the wild, wild west. And it fits the theme of he's the renegade. And then you got the weird sci-fi shit, especially at the end when the plot comes together and you realize, the forces at play. And then you go into full heavy sci-fi stuff a little bit. And when you're reading it, your head doesn't explode. It makes sense. You found that balance. How did you balance these two when you're putting the story together and writing it? Because for most folks, it would not make any freaking sense, but it totally does the way you put it together.
Well, thank you. First of all, you have to know the world that you're in. And I was very fortunate that as I wrote the first several stories, the world built itself. But if I've got an idea for a plot, I also stop and I say, this is science fiction too. What elements on this can we pull in to make this a science fictional universe? The background on this world is that it's a colony that got cut off for like 900 years. They survived. In the late 1900s, an architect said form follows function when he was building bridges. And later in the 20th century, Davis and Moore, sociologists, took that idea of form following function and said, that's how society is built. If you have an institution, the form will follow the function of its purpose. So I took Mark Twain and I said, he said, that history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. So I thought, okay, I've got a world that's just coming out of a war, number one. Number two, recovering its technology. So I've got the freedom to have something as fancy as a cell phone as being new technology, but I can go ahead and have railguns, and I can have nanites and creatures that are unnatural to us. So go back to my original point. The form is a cowboy because the form is following the function. It's an old west. It's an open an open seat with no lawyers, no politicians, sometimes no justice. And so you take that Wild West flavor and look for the science fiction, saying, what can I add to make it a science fiction Western? Does my villain have to have something special? Well, sure, why not? You got powered armor? Okay, sounds great. I've got exoskeletons. Oh, that'll work. It's a heavy gravity planet. The world builds upon itself. And stopping to think about, here's what I know about the world. What makes it special? What can be different about this particular world that people may not have expected out of a Western? And I try and follow it from there. Like I said, sometimes you just get lucky, and I think I'm very lucky.
I think you did great balancing that out, blending the two so it's greater than the sum of their parts. It's not just a pulp Western, and it's not just some science fiction rogue story, but the two come together really holistically well. But I think what really nails it is the character. So you've got this world, and then, as I was hinting before, this science fiction theme of the cowboy on the Western plain where no one has gone before resonates. And Colt is cool. and his cast of characters are cool. And even though Colt's kind of bouncing around like a cowboy does, he's got a fairly clear set of goals. Then he gets punched in the face occasionally, and there's obstacles. And then he goes from A to B to C to D in a way that's very clear, and that builds the drama up. So how did you get the character of Colt? Is there a little bit of Rick in Colt?
I wish.
How do you go about building a character that drives that drama within a world, as you described, that is cool?
Well, there's a cheat that new writers can use until they really get to the point where they can create fully fleshed characters. And that's find a person or an actor or a character and look for, if it was, I'm trying to think of somebody who I didn't use. if it's John Wayne, what would he say in this situation? You know, and that makes the character ring true because it's something that he said. Now, it's not quoting him, but what I'm saying is, if this character was here in this situation, what would the reaction be? And you stop and you think about, just don't write something and go on. Stop and think about what would the character actually say or do in this situation. I wish I could say, oh, I have this great, characterization module and I can do that. I'm just a guy who writes. And like I said, I choose to look at stereotypes. I choose to look at characters. And once I have the character down and I know their beats, it's very, very easy to say, well, Shelby would say this right here, or Shelby would do that, or Shelby would slap him. Okay, yeah, I like that. Okay, let's do it.
So it sounds to me like what you're hinting at is consistency. So you got a character, and the character is a personality. You use your damn imagination, and you've constructed this personality. You throw that personality into the world you've created, which is also cool. And then they need to do shit. And what they do is interacting with the world. And you as a writer, don't get in the character's way. Let the character do what the character needs to do to accomplish their goals in that world.
Yeah, that's very true. I have not experienced where the characters have actually taken over a story, but they've contributed. I say, yeah, that's what they would do. But you're not in charge. I'm still holding the pencil.
Yeah, and I think that could be good. A little bit of distance. I did my debut novel, science fiction novel, this year, and I got the feeling that my lead character just took over. he owns big chunks. So for better or for worse, that happened to me, and I was thrilled just being a tool of my characters, because eventually they just started writing the book. But having a little bit of distance is probably good, especially if you're mindful of the audience, right? You're shooting for a particular target audience. Raconteur specializes in a particular target audience. And I think you got lucky, but it's not just your luck, but it's your business sense about tapping into and aligning with what their needs are. And they know their audience, and they know a genre that's taken off right now, which is space cowboys. And when they put out an APB saying, hey, we need content, space cowboy stuff, they had a vision of who they're selling to. There's also precedent within the genre for being successful. And then you're like, ta-da, I'm Rick. Here's my space cowboy story. And they're like, oh, this is pretty fucking good. And it fit what they needed. So I think part of this is putting yourself not only into the shoes of your characters, but putting yourself in the shoes of your reader.
Yeah, that's true. That's all true. I'm, like I said, I'm just flattered and pleased that people actually like the stuff that I'm putting out there. So I keep on doing it. My problem is that I'm working on a novel, a second novel in a particular universe, and Colt keeps on intruding. It's like, what if he did this? And so I've got this scratch pad that I'm writing all these ideas out. Like, I'm not trying to write another Colt novel or a short story, but, what if this happened? And it's just, jot it down. It'll come out someday.
I totally relate. I have this alien mercenary kitty cat in my in my science fiction novel. I even did a little AI image. She's like super Jamie Lee Curtis hot with the little ears and whiskers,
Oh
and
yeah.
she's vicious, killer, really funny. And I realized, just like you did, that the character itself is so strong that she could own her own book or series. And it sounds like,
Mhm.
you took Colt and now you're writing something new, and Colt is kind of intruding on that. So if the character is good, it kind of drives you to start creating new content, whether it's a short story or whether it's a full-blown book. If the
Yeah.
character's strong and the world is sound, you could really start hauling ass and creating some great content, because that character is driving you along, right? Even if they become
Yeah.
intrusive, like Colt is now barging into your.
Yeah. And that's the thing about always be true to the character. When I write Colt stories and I have a situation, I look and say, what would he say? I got to go back to how did I build this character? What are his values? Um, is he a talkative person? No. Is he honorable? And that is probably his touchstone, knowing that we're at his core, what is this person like? And he'll choose to be honorable first, unless he's forced into something else. And I think that
Yeah.
relates to the Western flavor of the unintentional angel, the Shane that rides into the valley and he wants to give up, but it turns out that he can't, and he has to go back to what he was before.
I think that's bang on. My alien kitty is the exact opposite. She's mean and vicious and narcissistic and brutal. That's how
Yeah.
she starts. But then circumstances, if she's going to accomplish her goal, she's got to chill out. So
Which gives you
either way,
character
there's
arc.
got to
Awesome.
be an arc to it, right? That they
Yeah.
start in
Yeah.
a certain spot and then they get hit with the world, and then they either got to adapt and change or they stubbornly don't, and the reader needs to be into that. Like, I want to see what this character is going to do next.
Yeah. By the way, what's the name of your book and is it out?
The debut novel is Johnny Fazuli and the Transfinite Reality Engine. It's
There
like
you go.
James and the Giant Peach, only it's crazy Douglas Adams hard science fiction. That came out last year. And I'm working on the prequel now with the Mercenary Minx, which is this hot kitty cat. And my premise, yours is the rogue cowboy. My premise was taking the idea of the multiverse, like we
Uh-huh.
live in just one of an infinite number of universes. And this hustler realizes that if it's true, or at least I can convince people that it's true, then there's going to be another universe that's exactly the same as this one, except your wish happens to be true. So if you believe in the multiverse, there's endless variations of this podcast that are going on right now. And in some of them, I'm wearing a green polo shirt, and other ones, you're wearing a cowboy hat. And this guy promises to create a machine that can read your wish and then take you to a universe where everything's the same, except you happen to be a billionaire or you're married to Scarlett Johansson or whatever. And then he
Yeah.
goes about fooling investors that he could build it to get the money. And usually he dips. He'll promise a self-sharpening pencil, and then people get excited, give him money, and then he dips. He just takes the monies and runs. Only this time he hires a scientist to try to fool people even more, and she actually builds it, and it actually works. And then all hell breaks loose. That was my idea, and it's been fun as hell.
Yeah, that's a great tag too. You set up the story, and then all hell breaks loose. That's
Yes.
great.
The idea is one thing, but what you exemplify too is you've got a great idea. And in ways, it's one of the oldest tropes, right? You got the lone gunman
Mm-hmm.
on the plane, going from place to place, kicking ass, getting his ass kicked, and trying to find himself, and then finding love. That's pretty basic, but it's all
That's
in
true.
how you execute it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Tell us about how you executed. So you mentioned like you were a roadie, you've got this interesting diverse background, and
Mhm.
writing is basically sitting on your ass. It's kind of hard, right? You need to learn skills, and then there could be a host of other things that you could be doing, and instead you're in your basement typing away. How did you make that jump from doing all the different things that you've been doing to having the determination and discipline and focus to actually write a novel? It's
Okay.
harder than it looks, right?
It is.
Everyone says they're going to write that book. Not very many people do it. Not very many people do it well. How did you pull it off?
Well, I'll let everybody decide for themselves whether they pulled it off or not. But for
So far,
me,
so good, Rick.
yeah. Keep talking. Keep talking. I like what I'm hearing. Well, actually, a major influence on the writing that I do was a podcast called The Writer Dojo, which is Steve Diamond and Larry Correa. It's currently on hiatus, but they said, we're not going to deal with the fluff. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts. Write, work, get paid, have fun. And so their approach was, and it didn't hit me till I heard this on the podcast, and that was, you can't wait for the muse. If you're an accountant, you can't go to work and tell your boss, I just don't feel it today. I'm just not. I don't have the accounting muse. I'll come back tomorrow. What's going to happen? He's going to fire you. The bricklayer can't come in and say, I just don't feel it. Well, yeah, go home, do something else because you're not working here anymore. That was a transition from a hobby to a business, to a job. You treat it like work. Every day you write, and I've set aside a minimum of an hour every day. And in this case, what worked for me was at the end of my day. Everything else is done. I was working 2 jobs at the time when I wrote, the Ostergaard novel, 2 mundane world jobs. Plus, I was working on that at night, and treating it like a business instead of a hobby. Let me back up and say, hobby is fine. Hobby is fun. If you want to write as a hobby, go for it. Have fun. If you want to make money off of it, or you want somebody else to read it, if you want to treat it as a business, then treat it like a business. Go to work every day. Produce every day. Maybe you don't feel inspired every day, but get stuff down on the page. Now, I'm really old school. I'm so old school that when I write, I use a legal pad and a pencil. And then I take and I write my stories over and over and over again. Same story over and over. Pardon?
By
By
hand?
hand. By hand. So everything
Woo!
you see.
That's cool, man. That's old. That is old school.
And eventually I get to the point where I say, I can't change another word. Rewriting it is not going to change. And then I take it to my computer, type it up, and print off. And then I start editing the print off because I'll see stuff I didn't see before and start correcting things. I'll do a couple versions of that.
A lot of like big time old school writers do that. I mean, Hemingway obviously did that, but even Thomas Pynchon, the writer of the big books, everything on graph paper by hand, and the very last step is to enter it. David Foster Wallace, the writer of Infinite Jest, that big book, I believe he did the same thing. It's like, right, there's something special about writing by hand. It calms your ass down. There's nothing extraneous because there's a lot of carpal tunnel involved. And there's an organic thing to it. See, I'm the opposite. I'm like a maniac. I'm like 90 words a minute blind, and I'm but I really appreciate your more organic point of view. That is cool.
Well, and I have to say, I have a lot of admiration for folks who can sit down at a computer, blank page, and start writing. I mean, I think that's awesome. Maybe someday I'll be there, but for right now, writing by hand slows me down.
I'm not sure it's an advantage. It might be more convenient,
Mm-hmm.
But if you do fall into the trap of overwriting or overdoing it, typing 90 words a minute will probably do it for you.
Well, probably true, but and you're right. It slows me down so that I'll be writing the character or be writing something, and as I'm writing, something will pop in my head, and I'll just over the margins add this, add this thing later. Okay, they don't have two guns; they only have one gun. Whatever. So yeah, for me, it works. I don't recommend it for everybody, and like I said, I admire folks who can do that straight to a computer, or the other day I heard about people who dictate their stories. It's like, holy cow, you know, you know, I applaud you. Again, I'm just this old dinosaur back here working on the paper.
Remember Aleister Crowley of Ozzy fame? He used to sing about Aleister Crowley of the occult. He was a brilliant writer, by the way. He's a real personality, and he wrote some interesting stuff. And a lot of his stuff was spoken and then transcribed by somebody, which is interesting. And then if you read it, you're like, wow, that guy said that stuff. But it's been going on for quite some time, reading and then having it being written. And I think to your point, that's fascinating too. There's as many styles of writing and approaches as there are writers, and just pick and choose what works best for you. But I love your best practice, which is just get it done. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Put in the time. I liken it to, Madonna would have her period and then she'd have to perform. She's a professional. Madonna was always a professional. She did it regardless. And as a writer, you're in the mood, you're not. And there's this feeling too that, just to your point, that you need the gates of heaven to open up and the muse just makes herself available, and only then can it come out. No, man, you got to bust it out. You got to get that content out there. So I think that's a great piece of advice for newer writers and for writers who've been doing it for years, because it never gets any easier, right? It's hard.
That's true. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes for you. I mean, you're using the metaphor of the creative muscle. If in the hard times you write, in the easy times you're going to write better, because you've gone through and you've built those good habits, those good insights, that work ethic.
Why writing though for you? You seem to be like an enterprising guy, and you're likening it to a business. Why didn't you just start buying and selling crypto with all that effort? Why writing? Because just to be honest, I mean, even if you're a hit, I have writers on the show, okay, and they're like Nebula Award winners. Some of them have been writing for 2 decades, and they're a known commodity. They're a celebrity in science fiction. One, Matthew Kressel, I had his latest book, Rain Seekers, was just reviewed in the Wall Street Journal. So he's got press, and he's like a name in science fiction. He's successful. And he's got a day job. So, and that's not to denigrate Matthew or his success. It's just to illustrate that if you're in it for the money, especially initially, even if you're a really successful writer, it's hard to.
Yes. I'll give you an example. Very early in writing, when it was still kind of a hobby for me, I could let it go or do it or not do it. I was in a writing group led by an author by the name of Rob Chilson. He wrote Black as Blood for Bain. He's got like maybe 5, 6 other novels over the course of probably 40, 50 years. He worked every day at the IRS to support his writing habit. But he continued. I mean, he wrote like 60 short stories that were published, and you get 6 novels. But he couldn't afford to, pay his rent with, what he was writing. So some is a love of the craft. And as I've often told people, I was always writing. Somewhere around 5th grade, I wrote Attack of the Slime Molds, a 1-page handwritten story that my 2 daughters found in the attic, and encased it in plastic, gave it to me for Father's Day. I don't know where they found it, but they found it somewhere in the attic. But I've always loved telling stories. So I guess when I changed, or when I took it seriously and said, they're right, I'm not going to make $1 million. I've got to be realistic. Like Clint Eastwood said, a man's got to know his limitations. I think it was him or maybe Paul Newman. Somebody out there said that.
Quoting Montaigne or Nietzsche.
Yeah.
So you have the spark. See, this is another common theme when I talk to writers. It's not like an overnight sensation, and then just wake up one morning and go, I'm going to be a writer, and okay, let me give it a shot. You were 5 years old and you wrote that story, and I was like 10 years old with my first manual typewriter, one of those Corona typewriters, and I'm learning how to type. I'm doing the two with the roller, and then to hit return with the carriage. Young people don't even know what that is. That's even worse than a fax machine. We used to type like that. My first damn short story was a multiverse story. You know what I mean? And like fast forward, a few years, and my debut novel was the same theme. It's like it's burning inside, and I had to get it out. And it sounds like you've got that passion going on. So you are taking it seriously. You are treating it like a business. But the real energy behind it is this like inchoate and very powerful feeling that you are a writer.
Yeah. I'll tell you what also fuels me, and this is true, is that the feedback that people actually like the stuff. Somebody will say something nice, and I'm sure this is true for every writer. It's just like, gosh, somebody bought it or somebody liked it. It just inspires you to go back to the page and start writing some more, because it's just so much fun. And the first time you see something in print that you've written, it's just an awesome feeling, and it supercharges you.
It is great. I just got a 5-star review. I wrote and published a play called Mr. Lawrence, The Sky's Gone Out. And it's a corporate satire. So you have these shady corporate stooges in a high-rise overlooking a city, and they're doing their shenanigans. And in the middle of the day, in the middle of their work, the sky just blacks out. And then they have no idea what to do. It's kind of Twilight Zone meets The Office. And I got a nice 5-star review, and it looks like they actually read it and got into it. And and it was very flattering. It felt good that I was making that connection with somebody who enjoyed the play. So it's not just me toiling. It's not just making a couple bucks, but it's actually having somebody enjoy it and provide some feedback. We write for others to read, and our ideas are meant to be ultimately entertaining.
Yes, absolutely. If I'm not entertaining, then I'm not doing my job.
And the first book here, the first big book, it entertained me. So you got a fan already, and of one. What are you and Raconteur doing to get it out there? I believe it launches April 23rd. Am I right that's your launch date? So it's coming up. So this is like a launch party for Colt Ostergaard, the man with the gun. Here we are, and I'll get this out before then to kind of celebrate.
Oh, thank you.
And obviously, you could share the link, and then we could build up some woohoos. But what else are you doing? What's Raconteur doing? And what's the relationship like between you as an author in this crazy world of just so much content online and everywhere, so many options for readers, and Raconteur specializing this and supporting you? How does this shake out?
I can't say enough good things about the folks at Rack Press. They are Ian, the publisher himself, the big cheese, the big kahuna. He's a very Texan man, and I say that really as a compliment, because if he says something, that's the way it is. He doesn't even have to shake your hand. He's going to say, he'll say this, and you can bank on it. And that flavor has really permeated all of Raconteur Press. They're straightforward, they're transparent. They want you to succeed. They'll do what they can to help you succeed. And sometimes, even if they don't want something you've written, they'll give you hints and help in saying, you can do this over here, or you can try this, or here's how to, self-publish, and we'll give you a few Kickstarter ideas here to get you moving. They really live the idea that a rising tide lifts all ships. So in terms of a relationship, I've never had another publisher. I don't know what it's like. I'm like the fly in a jar full of vinegar. I don't know what it's like because I've never been anywhere else. But I love it. And these are the people that you want to go hang out with.
You married the first girl you dated.
Yeah, I guess I did. And dance with the one you brung. Or however that goes. Go home with the one you brung. I don't know. There's so many metaphors in there. But what I'm saying is that they're good folk. For instance, like the media they're using, primarily the ones that I see are like on Substack and some other social media. They'll actually, put out blurbs like once or twice a month. Just as a matter of fact, today they have an anthology called Anti-Heroes. It's a play on the word anti. It's about your aunt as a hero, or grandmother or stepmother, or the older ladies who aren't just knitting. They're actually going out there and defeating aliens and ne'er-do-wells. I was lucky enough to get a story in that one, along with a lot of other people that I really respect. But earlier this week, they put out several images in talking about what's coming up and talking about the stories. And I add to that. I just had Colt promote their book for them. So I create stuff. I create content. And sometimes they just restack or republish the content that I put out there. Again, I like putting blurbs or pieces of text or dialogue and putting a picture along with it. I haven't quite found a place to put Shelby yet, but I'm being real careful with that.
Yeah, I'm putting her on my wall. I'm going to print her out.
A pinup.
Actually, I'm going to put her right behind. You see this blank wall behind me?
Yeah.
I'm just going to put her.
I need to speak to Rack Press, and maybe we need to make a calendar for 2027 of like Shelby and other characters.
That's an awesome idea. That's a great marketing idea. Great. I'm telling you, though, it's so rare to have an illustrated speculative fiction book. And it's even rarer to have a space cowboy illustrated book. That's a real differentiator for you.
Yeah.
And it helps with the marketing, to your point. You got great content for ads and swag. You can make T-shirts and stuff. Get people excited about it. So this is great. I mean, I love the idea that Raconteur is stacking and restacking on Substack. I'm on Substack too. So my one quick observation is, woohoo. But the other one is it's kind of like a cross in a desk drawer with some garlic in Transylvania. It's just not enough. You know what I mean? It's like the vampires are out to get you, which is just, it's so competitive out there. So, you're dead in the water without some kind of paid advertising. And then obviously publishers do their own multimedia marketing. There's conference events. Like I'm going to the LA Festival of Books this weekend with some writers, and we're going to hang out. We got a booth and all that stuff. So when the rubber hits the road for book promotions beyond like these almost casual social media pings, do you guys have a campaign? How does Raconteur sell books for you? And then what do they expect from you as a writer to go out and promote it?
What do they do to campaign? I think they pick and choose the conventions that they can appear at. And when they get the opportunity, they put all the books out. They've had racks and racks of books, at their booth. The more that you interact with other people who are walking by, people buy from people that they like or people that they know.
Right.
I spent 20 years selling advertising for Southwestern Bell, and that's one of the things they pounded into you is that, you know, you need to be able to relate to the person you're talking to. If you want them to buy your ad, they buy from people they like. They buy from people they think are like them, that they're comfortable
Right.
with. And you do that at conventions, and you say hi, you say howdy, you make yourself accessible. Um, you're not a snooty author who, you know, wears patches on his sports coat. No patches on mine, by the way.
You're a douche in Vermont holding seminars for grad students.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not going to sell too many books.
Yeah, you know, so there's that. So they'll do conventions and they'll do other social media now, and there's contributions. One of the writers in Anti-Heroes, Nancy Fry, she put together and shot actually because she's got some major movie background in terms of support and costuming and role playing and things like that. She and her husband. She shot last year at the Writers Cantina in Utah, Salt Lake. She shot a bunch of scenes with 3 of the Rack Press writers and in costume as cowboys, as space cowboys with ray guns.
Love it. That's great. That cosplay stuff is, if you go to any Comic-Con, like I was just at LA Comic-Con, Pasadena, WonderCon, part of the fun is just dress up day.
Yes.
You know, you're walking around and there's a stormtrooper, there's Darth Vader,
right.
There's Alice from Wonderland, and then these niche characters too from a lot of speculative fiction, science fiction, fantasy, the TV shows. They're all dressed up and walking around. I think that's so much fun.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah, I was tempted. I'm not going to do it, but I was tempted to show up in a cow suit. Let me clarify. Not the one with like udders, but a full sports coat, pants, dressed as a Holstein.
Do it.
I knew you were going to say that. Well, we'll see. I'm not sure I want to invest that much to be.
Dress up like Colt, you know, be your dude.
And I'll be honest, I just don't have the form to be Colt. I'll let somebody else be Colt.
That cosplay's fun, going out there and relating to authors. You know, I'll know that my alien kitty cat is a hit eventually is if I'm at a con and I see somebody walking right by me dressed up like my alien kitty cat, my mercenary minx. If there's someone mercenary minxing, I'll be like, yes, I have arrived.
That's, that is pretty awesome. Yes, exactly.
So in summary, it's like, if you're a writer, then get off your ass and just do it. STFU and type.
Yes.
Butt in chair, hands on keyboard, right? Just that's the one term I heard from Mr. Holmes recently. And so STFU and type, and then treat it like a business. You're in the mood, you're not in the mood. Get in that hour a day, just do it. That's number one. Number two, stay consistent to your character. Like, you got a world you've created, make it make sense. Like, understand how your character is going to talk, what they're going to do. And then be sensitive to your audience. Like, know you're writing for somebody, you're connecting with somebody, and treat it like a business, take it seriously, and also tap into your own passion as a writer. Something's bound to happen. And you could get lucky like Rick. You're like, you could hit pay dirt, or at least, get your publisher and get out there if you just put your head and heart to it. Yeah.
And something else that I'll add for anybody that's, working or trying to break in and get their first published, don't get your dauber down. Don't let somebody rain on your parade. My best friend many, many years ago, I started writing a fantasy. I read like several pages and I showed it to him. And I've told this story before, but he looked at it and he said, "You use too many big words." It's kind of like, oh, and that just crashed me for years. didn't try, because he was my best friend. He would know. Well, no, sometimes you can't trust your best friend. There's a phrase: "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future." That applies really to other writers. Show me the writers that you hang out with, and I will show you your future, because they will inspire you, they will mentor you, they will give you opportunities, they will network with you. Choose the right gang, and you'll see your future.
I think that's great advice. People are jealous of each other. We sometimes think that drama just happens on the page or on the screen, but drama happens in our lives each and every day, and they're good guys and bad guys.
Yep.
And they're people whom you might trust the most, that you show your greatest vulnerability to, and then because you do that, they're in a position where they can crush you.
Yeah.
And don't let that happen. Be careful about that, especially as an artist. Because especially when you're starting, it's like, is this any good? I mean, I think it's good. What do you think? The second you appeal to someone who isn't a writer or doesn't have a vested interest in your success, you're exposing yourself to their judgment. And
That's
when
right.
you do that, it's very, very dangerous. They've got you by the cojones. And unfortunately, when you give people that kind of power, a lot of times they're going to take it. And you got to be careful.
Now, this will happen. Your mom will want to read it. Okay, let her read it, but don't take it too seriously. I mean, she loves you. She'll say, "Oh, it's nice." Or maybe she'll say, "Oh, you shouldn't be saying those kinds of things in print." Whatever. Mom is mom. But deal with the market that you want to sell to. Deal with other writers.
That's another great observation. Like, let's say you're an accountant or you're like a nuclear physicist, okay? And then you put together you do your math and you've concluded that this, engineering widget should be placed this way and not that way. All right. Uh-huh. Are you going to show it to your girlfriend? Are you going to show it to your mom? And then if you do, say, "Hey, look what I did." They're not going to know what the hell you just did. Why do you expect them to judge you? Right. Right. He's like, "Good job. Good job." So pick your audience, pick your readers, but also pick the people whom you want to check your stuff out in a way where they're educated and they're on your side. Otherwise, you're screwed. Right. Yeah. That's great advice.
It's not that easy. It's not that easy. I was in a writer's group, and somebody who actually had been published looked at my manuscript and said, "You're only allowed one exclamation point per story." It's like, the heck, you say? That's not my group.
And the other thing, too, if you're going to be different and make a name for yourself, you're going to be unique in some kind of way. You got your own distinct thing going on. And if you're unique and distinct, you're automatically going to be disruptive, and you're going to kind of break the mold, and you're going to irritate people. And especially if they've got something that they've established which is different from what you're doing, they're going to... No, one exclamation point, or, you go tell Eddie Van Halen that he's not allowed to use this finger. Really? So be careful where you're getting your advice from and who you share your shit with. That's true, and to your point, look to other people who are successful, who know what the hell they're talking about, and ultimately have your interest in their interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sounds obvious, but there's so many landmines as a creative person, and it could get so discouraging, and it's good to protect yourself. And I'm so glad you bring this up. You're the first guest I've had, your podcast number 42, I think, in the science fiction series. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's an item that a lot of people overlook or don't want to talk too much about, but I think that it's very important for your own sanity and success.
Yeah. But like I said, if you want nothing wrong with it being a hobby. I totally support anybody who wants to write as a hobby. Show it to your mom.
Yeah.
That's cool. But if you're going to be business, then do business and treat it like a business. But we've run that down before.
And protect your ass while you do it, right? Just like you're running a business, right?
Yeah.
It's competitive out there. People are mean. People can be mean. So protect your own assets and gun it and have your goal in mind. So this is just terrific. What's next step for Mr. Rick? For Mr. Rick Cutler and Mr. Colt Ostergaard. Okay. It sounds to me like you're not done with the guy.
No, I'm not. I thought I was, but in the novel, A Man with a Gun, Colt Ostergaard, A Man with a Gun, there's a large gap where I can fill in 20 dozen more stories. And I've left it that way, so I always have that out to be able to say, this happened back then. This happened over here. This happened here. So, there'll be some more Colt, I think. Just kind of depends on the weather, I guess.
You're already working on the other book, though, right? You've already got the other book that Colt is barging into, right?
Yes. There's a whole full novel that's in a slush pile, waiting for the right time and place. It's actually in the same universe as Colt. I didn't have to reinvent anything. I just went to a different planet and a different time. So that is complete. That's being considered. It made it past the first round of slush saying, well, we didn't throw it back. So I'm hopeful for it. But what I'm doing right now is writing the sequel to that particular novel. That one is, the novel that's under consideration is The Wild Colonial Boy. The sequel is Shipwrecked on Paradise, which I'm about halfway through right now. And when I'm done with those two, if Colt hasn't called me back, I'll probably take the fantasy that I mentioned, which was, okay, but needs work. I'll probably redo that one because I think it's got really good bones left on it. And I'm at a point where I've learned enough that I think I can produce a good, solid story out of it.
I think that's exciting. You got this momentum going from the world with all these characters. It's kind of like after you got Breaking Bad, you got Better Call Saul, and they're all busting out of that energy. And then you're building your fan base too, because if they're digging on Colt, the man with the gun, then they'll be curious about these other characters. And if it's happening in another planet in that world, then you feel like you're building almost your creative franchise from that.
And what's sweet about that is in the novel, which takes place after the Colt Ostergaard novel, you can throw Easter eggs in there. That someone will say, oh, I know where that came from. And so that makes it fun for the reader who will have read the previous book, will see things pop up in a totally different character's world.
If you're a fan of Black Mirror on Netflix, they do Easter eggs from one episode to another. And Quentin Tarantino does it in his movies as well. There's little hat tips to his own work. And of course, hat tips to other things that we know and that we love growing up that has influenced what we do. And that's super fun because it ties things together. And then like a little wink to the readers to know that we're all in it to win it in that kind of meta sense is really, really fun. So awesome, Rick. Super fun conversation. Check out the book, folks, coming out April 23rd. We'll have links in the description of the audio and the video. And keep it rocking. I was hugely entertained. I think the illustrations are phenomenal too and can have their own life to them. You got to do that calendar. And if you put out a poster, I'm putting it right back up here. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, like, comment, share, subscribe, folks, to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Factory. And I'd love to follow up with you 6 months in a year, see what else you got cooking.
Let's
would
do
be
it.
really good to do. And a salute to Raconteur Press as well for being such a
Yeah.
good partner for writers who are just starting out, writers who've been in biz for a while, and helping every step of the way. That's what I'm finding out about these smaller, more intimate presses, is they work with you on your ideas. So if you've got game and you demonstrate that level of commitment and you have the taste then and the content that they're looking for, it's collaborative. So writers, you're not on your own. If you hook up with a publisher, especially a good publisher, they're your ally, not your enemy. And together you can make some great music together, and at very least, some cool speculative science fiction books.
Absolutely.
Hang tight. Take care, Rick. Thank you.